The universe knows who we are, and we have to get to know ourselves. And astrology is a huge tool for shadow work, actually. The chart doesn't lie. Like, you sit here and you look, you're like, okay, I got Black Moon Lilith and Pluto in the 6th. And my chart is definitely telling me some tea that I've got to face. Do I want to face it or sweep it under the rug and have it like kind of rear its ugly head at another time and harm me?
Welcome to the GRACED podcast, a space for everyday magic for your everyday life. We do this through rituals, aligning yourself to your soul's purpose, and creating alchemy to heal our mind, body, and spirits so that you can bring in more love and joy, manifest your desires, and believe in your dreams. Listen and watch over at graceduong.com/podcast and on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, and all the places you can find me on social media. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome to the GRACED podcast, a space where we talk about everyday magic for your everyday life. Today's guest is Adama Sesay, a professional astrologer who is also the author behind the book and deck Black Moon Lilith Rising: How to Unlock the Power of the Dark Divine Feminine Through Astrology, and the Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Alchemy Oracle deck. Adama studied metaphysical science of astrology through the National Council for Geocosmic Research and has over a decade of experience in the mystical, spiritual, beauty, and fashion corporate worlds. In today's conversation, we talk about the power of Black Moon Lilith, the archetypes of Black Moon Lilith, and owning your dark feminine side. And if you'd like to dive deeper into getting to know yourself, you can discover your tarot birth cards on the Mystic Mondays website. We have a free calculator to calculate your tarot birth cards, along with extensive and in-depth reports for your tarot birth cards pairing, available to order on our website. So check it out over at mysticmondays.com for more information and to calculate your tarot birth cards. And we are doing a giveaway of Adama's deck, the Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Oracle deck, on all the socials. More details on how to enter this giveaway on the @grace.duong and @Mystic Mondays Instagram and YouTube channels. Now let's dive into this episode. Hi Adama, welcome to the GRACED podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So when I look at your book, Black Moon Lilith Rising, and your deck, which is also called Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Alchemy Oracle deck, and your business, Lilith Astrology, obviously the common thread is Lilith. Can you tell us more about Lilith, what inspired you about it, and what drew you towards making it a focal point in your work and what you do?
So I think the best way to explain why I chose, or I should say Lilith chose me, and why my work evolved to really concentrate on Black Moon Lilith in astrology. I want to just kind of start towards the beginning of when I really started taking classes and I got a private teacher for astrology. And this was about 2017 when I really got serious. So I've loved astrology my entire life. I remember when I was younger, I would, I don't know if you all remember going on like AOL and search for whatever I could find. I knew I was a Scorpio. I would actually sit, and it was one of these older websites. I can't remember the name right now, but I would sit and try to look at how the charts were structured and try to figure it out myself. And after I went to college and went to New York City to intern in beauty, got a job, worked in it for about 5 years, and I had what I'm going to call a quarter life crisis in New York City. I'm originally an upstate girl. I'm a suburban girl. I didn't grow up in the hustle, bustle, and intensity of New York City. And I really just went there for my career. So I actually moved to Portland, Oregon when I was 25. Around that age, I got a job at a very well-known astrology website. And I actually moved out there. I moved out there in a past relationship, and I didn't have a job. I literally just was like, I can't stay another day in the city. I feel overwhelmed. Even though I love cosmetics, I love beauty. It's just that corporate structure and the grind was really weighing me down, and I felt that life was short, and I just was like, I think if I change my reality and I changed my location, I can really figure myself out. So I went out there, applied, and literally, yeah, I went to the interview, got the job the next day. So that really triggered me to actually take a look at, let's say, the spiritual astrological industry as, oh, it's not just what I thought it was, like something fun that I kind of dabble in as a kid and think is great, and I love reading about it. This could actually be a career, a life path. So that actually showed me that this is something that I could do. I just felt very lit up about it and really motivated going into work every day. And I just saw that not only did astrology help me, but it was helping other people. Our website was helping other people and building community. So I was there for a couple years and left that position because I really wanted to go back to New York for family reasons. So I moved back to New York. I got a job because, we need money. And I joined my local GR chapter and started going to meetings and meetups and conferences and meeting people. That's where I met my private teacher, and I started going to group courses. And through doing all of that and meeting all of these people and seeing different perspectives and understanding astrology on a more professional level, which is a little different. No shame, no shade to anyone that's just learned from books. But when you really learn it from someone who's been doing it for 60 years, it's a little different of a ball game. So I was in these classes, and in one of the classes, my teacher briefly brought up Lilith and was literally like, it's something we should know. It's in the birth chart. Here's a little bit about this archetype. Let's chat about it. And what she said, it was very simple. It was just about the mythological story, the different forms she takes. And it really just triggered something in me like, I want to know more about this. Like, we're learning about the moon, we're learning about the sun, we're learning about all of these planets that people know very well and love, but she just kind of gets cast off to the side. And I'm like, I can relate to that. As a Black woman in this country and in this world, I can relate to that. So I went home and I, lo and behold, looked in my chart after this trigger and realized that it was in my first house of self and close to my ascendant. So not only did her explanation of the archetype trigger that interest, but then I saw that it was actually very visible and apparent in my own personality and my life experience. So that's when the obsession just took over. And yeah, so it was about 2017 when that happened. I remember like one night doing deep down a dark hole of Lilith research. And I go online and I'm like, oh, I'd love to like see some imagery. Like what imagery is out there, what mythological imagery is out there of Lilith. And it was all like very white. And I was like, okay, interesting, but that's not really my take. Like, that's not what I'm seeing here with this archetype and just the different interpretations. Also, no shame, no shade to other people's interpretations of it, but that's just not what I was experiencing and seeing from someone who especially deals with some of the themes that she brings in everyday life since birth, basically. So I got the idea that I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna talk about it and give my own interpretations. Now you have some groundwork on how I really got into and named my business this. Let's talk about Lilith.
Yeah. So I actually had a few questions in there. How did Lilith, showing up in your first house and being conjunct your ascendant, like what does that look like in your everyday life? And then two, I did want to talk about the mythology behind Lilith. And you mentioned the many forms that she took. And another thing I wanted to mention before we go even further is I just wanted to celebrate, the figures in your deck because they are people of color. They're representative of diversity, very celebrating different figures and also different cultures. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that because sometimes you don't see that in many decks. You don't see representation in some decks. And so I think it's really important that you put in your life experiences and your take on Lilith. This is Mary Magdalene, and she's, a brown-skinned woman, and typically, and I'm holding up the card, by the way, for people that are listening, And she's typically portrayed as a white woman in society. So, yeah, I think it's really important to share that with other people, that it doesn't have to necessarily look the way that it's being portrayed on a mass level if it's not really representative of your experience.
100%. Thank you as well. So, to answer your first question about my experience as a Black Moon Lilith rising, let's just start first with my race and gender. I'm a Black woman, and just that alone, you are one of the most demonized and subjugated groups of people on the planet, because not only are we dealing with gender discrimination and subjugation, but we're also dealing with racial trauma and oppression. So Lilith is a deity that deals with those themes. It's about patriarchy, dominance, control, objectification of the feminine. It's the dark, oppressed, unseen, and scary, quote unquote, parts of the feminine. And throughout history, Black women have been demonized. You can't walk out of the house and wear a hairstyle or wear a certain clothing style without someone saying something about it. Or I keep using the word demonized, but that is Lilith's allegory, is that she was this evil demon harlot that disobeyed her husband and was cast off and punished for doing that. And so this is where we experience those themes in our lives and how it shows up in our who we are. And everybody has 12 houses and different planets aspect other planets. So it depends on you, and it shows up for people in a very unique way. But as a collective, it is extremely close to the experience of Black women. So on top of that, I was a only child and raised by a single mother. My parents were divorced when I was like 5 years old. And basically, in my lineage, there is and I talk about this in the book, Black Moon Lilith Rising, there is a trauma, if you will, around the masculine and the feminine essentially having to do everything. And that's what I grew up seeing. Is basically I was surrounded by strong, powerful women that is like, men ain't shit and they're doing nothing. And I guess I gotta pull myself up and be both the mother and father for everyone around me. So having that lens on top of it and being raised by very powerful women who they just don't take shit, and they get their work done, they get what they've got to get done, and they survive. That is what was built into my system. And I actually had to deprogram myself from some of those traumas, because it's also not fun to take on the burden entirely yourself as a woman in life. Like it's not joyful. And also being seen as that dominant, powerful, strong Black woman it can be harmful, because it places a unnecessary and unrealistic burden on us. So Black Moon Lilith is a way for, and was a way for me, but it's a way for all Black women specifically to deprogram themselves from that conditioning that they are not feminine, and that all we're here to do is pick up the slack for everyone and work and do everything. And that's not the case. And when we change that thought pattern, we can free ourselves from those burdens. So that's just like a little bit of my lens in terms of how Black Moon Lilith shows up. But the reason why I named the book Black Moon Lilith Rising is it's not only for everyone. It's actually, I didn't write this for just Black women. And I specifically so because there's so much literature out there that I feel like all people should consume, even if it may give a certain lens. I'm tired of just only having a white Anglo lens that's seen as normal or seen as the standard. That's why, if you notice, some of the men are actually of different ethnicities in the deck, but the Black woman is centered. And that doesn't happen very often. It's always like, oh, well, this is a niche thing. This is a Black thing. But it's like, well, shouldn't you know about something niche and something outside of your lens? Because it could actually, intersectionality teaches us that you could actually learn, once you look at someone who's incredibly oppressed and what they've gone through, it can actually translate over to help you and empower you in your life.
Absolutely. So I do feel like looking through your deck and the beautiful imagery, I did feel like a sense of empowerment and a celebration of the Black woman, which I feel like, with your story and the narrative, because I feel like in some ways having Black Moon Lilith in your first house can feel somewhat debilitating. It can feel like it's stripping away your power, but in a lot of ways, for you to create this deck and to write this book, it's like reclaiming your power, centering yourself, or representation that you wish you saw of yourself in this deck. And I think it is important to center, what we wish we saw in society that wasn't necessarily there. And so I'm like kind of bridging the gap between like your connection to Black Moon Lilith and why it's so important to you to share, reclaiming these repressed parts of ourselves.
100%. And it's interesting you say that it's like you can feel like with Black Moon Lilith, it's debilitating in terms of your power, especially if it's in your first house or conjunct your ascendant. But its other thing is you're alchemizing other people because other people are never going to change. And the way that they view you is never going to change, but it's about the way you view yourself. And that's the thing with Lilith's story. So just a little background on the biblical, well, the suppressed biblical side of her story. So basically, she's in the Talmud. This is in like Kabbalic texts. She's not in the straight up New Testament, like in the official creation story, but there is a little bit of goss that she is in the Adam and Eve story, and I'll get to that after this. But she was the original first woman in that mythology, and she was born from the dust with Adam. And basically, born from the dust equally, God created them and said to go forth, live your life, procreate. And Adam took it upon himself, instead of treating her like a partner and as an equal, to now want to dominate and start, patriarchy. And basically, when it came time to have sex, he said, you're beneath me, you're a woman, you need to lie beneath me. And she said, no. She literally said no. And this is the power struggle here. So she left and ran away. And basically, God sent angels after her to make her come back. She wouldn't come back. And so she was cursed, turned into a demon, said she was going to have birth hundreds of demon babies and kill children and all kinds of stuff that is just allegory. So that's another thing I want people to understand. Like some people, I'm not religious, but some people think that this is an allegory and these stories aren't there to like teach us things, like that there were real people. But if they were real, for me, like they would be melanated people. If it's the first people, like to me, that's what makes sense in my head. So that's why I also was like, this doesn't make sense. Like it's the same reason why they paint Jesus white all the time. And it's like, it's not adding up to me there. But basically, that's the story. And in your birth chart, that is where you can experience that type of subjugation, demonization, powerlessness from the outside world. So that's why it's alchemy. Her position in astrology, her point in astrology is that it's about shifting your inside in order to empower yourself regardless of other people and how they're triggered by your presence. Because another thing too is she triggers the demons in other people. Not to toot my own horn or anything. I know it may be a Leo moon, but I've experienced jealousy from people if I walk into a room. And I'm an intuitive, so it's like I can tell. But now, as this ascended version of myself, I can just observe someone and I don't buy into it. I don't think it has anything to do with me. I don't feel disempowered by someone else's demons and what they think about me. And I've shifted that. But old me would judge myself or shrink myself down or not think I was smart enough or good enough, and they would win. So that's really the power struggle there. And if you have Black Moon Lilith rising, which is also a term that I coined with if you have Black Moon Lilith in the first house or conjunct the ascendant, that can be your experience. And so there's a specific section in the book that addresses that because it's not really addressed. I don't want to say it's like having Pluto on the ascendant or in the first house, because Pluto is a completely different deity, but yeah, it's similar if we want to kind of compare it to another planet.
So my Black Moon Lilith happens to be conjunct my Pluto in the sixth house.
Oh wow, interesting. So like the work environment, maybe that's why you're a solopreneur.
Yeah, there were many work situations where I was like, I can't work for anybody, no matter how hard I tried, and it just kept reflecting back to me. Whether it was power struggles, I think mostly with like my bosses. For me, I think it reflected the relationship and the authority figures that I had, in my childhood of like domination, not really asking me what I wanted to do or honoring my needs and wants and desires. And I feel like the unprocessed trauma of childhood can reflect in workplaces. That's where I saw it. If you don't have it completely resolved yet, you could attract the jealous coworker, or not that you're attracting it on purpose or whatever, or like the boss that takes credit for your work, or whatever it is. The thing is I totally agree with you about taking back your sense of power, in that you can't really expect people outside of yourself to change if you're not willing to change. Because when you are doing the work and you're willing to take the power back and willing to show up, take accountability for yourself, because I think a lot of people like to blame other people for what they're not doing or what they are doing to make you more or less comfortable. Meaning, if you're looking for somebody to change themselves to make yourself more comfortable, that's never going to work, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to trigger you. But if you are going back in within yourself and you're like, oh my God, that person is really triggering me, what's going on? Then you take back the power and then you notice it every time. And I think that is more about self awareness. And I know in my life, I've just noticed that whenever I shift something within myself, my outer reality shifts too. So the biggest thing that you can do really is your own inner work at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's Black Moon Lilith. Is it's an internal thing, and then my theory is once we collectively all realize that and shift that, we then shift the world. We shift these patriarchal structures of hate and violence and dominance and death and destruction that are going on all across the world right now because we have been under the system of oppression, which I do have a chapter that goes into just the stages of patriarchy that we've experienced as a collective and what's led up to now present day that we are in destruction mode. And it's not going to change. Like a lot of people think like there's climate change over here and then there's war over here and then the racism's up here and whatever other oppressions down here, and they're all separate and they have nothing to do with one common thing.
Can you tell us more about these stages of patriarchy, as you call them?
So let's like go back to let's go back to, let's say, the witch trials, right? We have the Salem witch trials. We also have, I didn't talk too much about the witch trials actually. I fast forwarded to the founding of America. That was like a really big time when like the religious patriarchal institution was set up in the world. But just for this podcast, because it's a little witchy, let's go back to the Salem witch trials, which was literally all about, this is more also a European trauma that happened. Millions of people died because they were accused of or tortured because they were quote unquote witches. And a lot of them were women. And it was, if you were exhibiting basically like feminine traits, you were considered evil and a demon. And this is similar to what Lilith, quite literally happened. So we had big events like the witch trials. Then there was like the Spanish Inquisition and the Crusades, which was all about spreading the gospel through violence and killing people and making them transition over to organized religion that is basically about worshiping a male god and men. And it's all about the structure of that. And patriarchy, people forget, is also about, like, the Vatican that's a patriarchal institution. It's a religious institution run by men, and there are levels of different people within that organization, and they run the world quite literally. So we started off with that, and then it segued into founding of America. Obviously, we all know about slavery and what went on there, and basically brutalizing and killing all of the indigenous population to basically set up what we have in the United States. And then all white men were given their rights during the revolution, which also happened when Pluto went into Aquarius the last time, which we are now going to experience next year. So them gain their rights and set up patriarchal country of America. European nations are majority set up patriarchally as well. So literally then we go from that and more of an agrarian society that's based on farming. It wasn't like stripping the land completely and giving nothing back as much. But then we switch from agrarian over to the Industrial Revolution. That's why we have climate change and we have these horrific things going on with the environment, because it became about output and products and how many people can we enslave to do our work for us and how much can we sell, and humanity and collectivism has all gone out the window. And that's the structure that we've been left with today and why we are in the situation that we are in. And until we change these structures and we balance the feminine and we balance the masculine, we balance the energy in this world, it was just going to continue this way. It runs so deep. And with patriarchy comes the violence, comes misogyny, comes the racism is under patriarchy. A lot of people don't realize that racism is not separate from it. It's actually a product of it. George Washington was a straight patriarch and he had slaves. They were racist because it's a institution of government. So we are literally a world that is built on patriarchal oppression and stripping of the land. And now the Mother Earth is fighting back and wanting and pushing us through these lessons to transform. And we're going to see that intensify with Pluto in Aquarius next year. And as we step further into the age of Aquarius, it's like these systems can't come, or they just can't. They don't fit in this age. So that's why we're seeing so much tension. And yeah, it's just an explosion of violence that has been going on. And next year, it's like the breaking down is going to continue.
Yeah. So with Pluto in Aquarius, what do you feel like that new age will bring? And also, you talk about the divine masculine needing healing, divine feminine needing healing. And I do feel like when I think of Lilith, I think of feminine nature, this divine feminine power, this rage even, right? And using that as power. How do we heal the divine masculine and the divine feminine so that we are in balance? And as an astrologer, are you seeing that shift with Pluto in Aquarius?
I personally, just to take the intuition out of it, I personally hope that Pluto in Aquarius saves us, because it's not sustainable what's going on. But astrologically, I think there is going to be a lot more violence and conflict and war and eruption in order for us to have these conversations and in order for things to be seen and changed. It's going to take, so this Pluto in Aquarius transit is 20 years. It's going to be going until 2044. And that's really, I think of Pluto Aquarius, not like it's starting the age of Aquarius. It's more like, I'm getting a vision of someone with like a bat, and the wall is the age of Pisces and illusion. And now this is like, we're not even a bat, like a sledgehammer. That's a better term. And now it's like the Berlin Wall, like how all of a sudden they just were like, time to chip away at what the structure that has been holding us back as a humanity. And so that's what I think the next 20 years are going to be. It's not going to be like Pluto shifts into Aquarius and we wake up and we're all holding hands and running through a field and happy. It's more like there's a lot of work that we need to do in order to make the age of Aquarius to actually fulfill that promise of collectivism and humanitarianism and peace and equality. Because there's also a dark side to Aquarius as well, too. There's a cold side to it, that we can also have science and technology, things like AI, destroy us as well. So there's those two elements that we can look at these transits, but unfortunately the government, they might, but they don't listen to astrologers, but you all do. So it's like, those are the things that you can be doing as we move into Pluto and Aquarius, is not just being a social justice warrior, but transforming yourself internally, healing the divine feminine, the divine masculine within you, and allowing that to then emanate out to the collective. That's the biggest service to humanity we can do right now, because the more people that transform this within themselves, and something that has been so suppressed and in subjugation for centuries. When we heal that, it will reverberate out to the collective.
Have you downloaded the Mystic Mondays app yet? Well, if you haven't, what are you waiting for? If you want to take the Mystic Mondays tarot and oracle cards with you wherever you go, just download the app. Mystic Mondays app is on iOS and Android stores and available to download now. Now back to the episode. How does one use Black Moon Lilith to empower themselves?
So in my book, I do talk about every placement in the 12 houses, 12 zodiac signs. I do talk about some aspects. So you can start there first by understanding, look at your own chart, match up the placement, the sign, the house, if you have any aspects to it, and read about that. I also offer a 13-day workbook at the end of the book that actually takes you through the alchemy of it. But it's also about putting it into practice in your life. And that was actually, I mean, I think it's the most challenging for everyone. I mean, if you're a Virgo, maybe it won't be a Virgo placement, so it'll be a little easier for you. But it's really also walking the walk. So let me just give an example placement of a celebrity, someone that has a Black Moon Lilith ascendant. Let's say Marilyn Monroe. She's a Black Moon Lilith in Leo, conjunct Neptune in her ascendant. And it's very obvious how this played out in her life as a Hollywood star, really championed for her beauty and what she brought to the silver screen. But her personal life and her childhood was so sad. So it was like this light was then beat down and completely just destroyed by the people around her. And she wasn't able to get herself out mentally from that 5-year-old or 10-year-old, Norma Jean was her name, to then when she became that star, to really shine her light and tell the studio execs to go themselves and say, I'm going to start my own business. And that was also the time she was living in. I think if she was in 2023, it may be different. I don't know. I mean, we have people like Britney, but Britney's also reclaiming her power as well. But that's someone who could have totally used this book and healed she was molested as a child. She was in different foster care situations. She got married to an adult at 16 to get out of that situation. So she carried all of that trauma within her. And people also, when they see a light like that, and if you have all of that unaddressed childhood trauma, they want to snuff it out. So it was an internal job that she was going to have to do, but it unfortunately took her life. And she was 36. She's my age. And I also talk about this concept in the book, the Black Moon Lilith return. And, we have the Saturn return. There's different returns in the chart. And I do dig into this, and it's every 9 years. And this was her third one. And sometimes when Black Moon Lilith returns to the place it was when you were born, triggers those demons. And you're either going to face it or it becomes your power. And that for me, instead of it being my downfall or destructing myself because of things I've gone through, instead I was reclaiming my power and helping other people with this energy. This might be a little triggering, so trigger warning to people. Marilyn Monroe is a little triggering because she does deal with death. But I looked up Matthew Perry's chart, who recently passed away on Friends, and he just finished his Black Moon Lilith return. And it's not like everyone's like there's gonna be a traumatic situation during your Black Moon Lilith return. It depends on you, your chart, what you've gone through, how it shows up for you, and if you're aware of it. If this is and there's other things in his chart. I remember, I'm going off the top of my head, but he's a Scorpio moon in the 4th house with Saturn in opposition in the 10th house. And I remember reading, he actually released a memoir last year that there was challenges with the mother and childhood, and he had addiction challenges and trying to escape that. So it was more than just Black Moon Lilith, but that's part of the story. So hopefully that didn't trigger anyone, but that was a good example.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand the presence of Black Moon Lilith in our charts and become aware of its effect on us, as well as the other factors that are going on in our chart. And honestly, sometimes it just makes sense, when you just look deeper into it and you're like, oh wow, this is conjunct this, and this is sextile this, and that's opposition that. And then you're just like, astrology just knows, you know?
And then the eclipses, that's another facet that I talk about in the book is Black Moon Lilith and eclipses, because even though Black Moon Lilith isn't the moon, it has to do with that. It's the furthest orbit of the moon. It's that mathematical point. It's that darkness. It's the furthest away from that maternal, nourishing energy that we know as the moon. So it can really activate Black Moon Lilith when there's eclipses there.
So right out of the gate, Adam and Lilith are, asked to procreate. And you were talking about patriarchy and this disempowerment, this power struggle that can be felt in society. And isn't it interesting that right out of the gate, Adam already sees Lilith as this lower being, and Lilith is fighting for her power. Do you feel like that's symbolic with whatever's going on today?
100,000%. And kind of just piggybacking the question you asked before about divine masculine, that Lilith is a fantastic placement for men specifically to look at if they want to heal internalized misogyny and wounds within themselves around their femininity and the feminine and transforming that. Because like even when I gave that Matthew Perry example, it's a lot of mother wounds and wounds within himself around the feminine that ultimately it created him wanting to escape from that trauma that he experienced rather than being able to face it. So yeah, I think that that's a big problem in the world is I think because we've grown up with this patriarchal framework, like most societies are. Even though the women might be doing a lot, it's still under the framework of patriarchy on top of it. So all of these men are taught that they are superior, that women are their objects, that they have rights to women's bodies, women's time, women's essence, and that women are just they're not equal to them, that they should be paid less, that they shouldn't be listened to. And this has all been built up, not only across generations, but from birth. And this is all subconscious, a lot of it, because any dude maybe like modern Gen X millennial might be like, oh no, I'm not misogynistic and I'm not patriarchal. But then when we dig down deep, let's get down deep into it. There's some things that you have inherited and picked up that you have not addressed. And this is why we are in the situation that we're in.
Yeah. And when I look through your deck, I feel such a strong ancestral tie. And there are some images in here where, there's like a pregnant woman and a grandmother. And I noticed that your book was dedicated to, I believe, your grandmother and your mother. Is that because it was not like mother, it was like another name?
Yeah, so these were my great grandmothers on both sides who I actually knew before they passed pretty significantly. And one of them was basically kind of like my nanny when I was growing up and was taking care of me when my parents were working. So I just had an affinity for them. But then also they grew up at a time that they didn't have these opportunities, especially like my great grandmother from Freetown, Sierra Leone. Like all she knew was like taking care of the children, cooking, staying home, family. And that's beautiful. And then on my mom's side, she grew up in the South in America. I'm also African American. And in 1912 was and literally there couldn't even have a bank account as a woman. And just through stories in the family, I didn't hear this from her specifically, and I didn't mention this in the book, but she was a witch on top of it. So not being able to do what I'm doing is I'm healing that through my ancestral lineage of being able to now take the ball and kind of run with it. So I really feel like it's an homage to them who didn't have these opportunities to express themselves and be themselves and be a proud Black woman in public, because there's just so much segregation and oppression when they were my age.
Yeah, and also the gift of being able to speak your truth and be in a time to feel safe to do so. because I noticed when you said witch, you said it like quietly, and, sometimes, and of course, historically, there have been witches burned at the stake, and many people have memories, past life memories of being, punished for having witchy powers or wanting to heal people. And so sometimes there can be this, not wanting to come out of the witchy closet and show yourself because there was actual danger involved in revealing your gifts. So I think it's such a wonderful homage to, your lineage, being able to share your gifts in a way that is empowering, is strong, and you're speaking your truth in a way that is honoring yourself and them as well. And I know you had mentioned like healing these feminine wounds of having to do everything. And I do feel like that's across the board. I can relate to that as well. Like my mother did everything too. And my dad was addicted to gambling growing up. So he was not very dependable and she did everything. And it's just such a weight, And I can see in my own life how I try to do everything too. And it's not always like great, it can get very heavy.
Your Lilith is in the 6th house. That's work, servitude. Yeah, it's time to release the burden.
Ooh, let it go.
That's the 6th house is burdens. It's drudgery. A lot of people don't interpret it as even slavery is in the 6th house because it can be triggering. But yeah, that's quite literally in the 6th house. So basically, that's something to alchemize within yourself is to stop piling stuff on yourself.
Ooh, I'm trying real hard.
Sometimes I do too, because also we're solopreneurs. Like if we don't do it, it's not going to get done. And I totally get that. But like I told you before we hopped on the call, I was writing both books at the same time. And I also had multiple columns at different magazines. And I had to choose because I was like, I am not going to do this at all. I'm not going to grind myself into the ground and then also have a mediocre experience and have this not turn out the way that I truly want it to if I can't focus. And I know not everyone has that luxury because we live in a capitalist world where we also have tons of bills and stuff. But that also, it wasn't fun, running short on certain things financially and taking pay cut to actually do that. But it did also transform some of that trauma around doing everything. So sometimes letting certain things go, it actually then releases something vibratory and it increases your frequency. And then something else comes in that's not as much work. So the universe is like reflecting that back to you. I talk about that a little more in the esoteric. I have like a alchemy chapter where it's a little less astrology and more about the energetics and how to release what happens when you release old stories, old patterns, and old ways that you operate in your reality, and how that then triggers something within the universe to then bring down a match because you decided to take that active step and change it. So that's another thing too, is like every day you've got to change the behaviors and you have to know when you're doing them. And that's what's so challenging because a lot of them are subconscious. We learn them from our mother. This is why like lineage is a big thing in the book for me, because at the end of the day, Lilith is also allegory for the mother of all of us. So we're all living with her trauma.
Yeah. And I also like in the book you had mentioned, since she's like the furthest point away from the moon, she's not necessarily like a nourishing mother. She's kind of like a harsh, I'm almost mean mother. Would you agree with that?
So that's another one of her forms is I call the terrible mother archetype, opposite to Saturn. Saturn is what I call the terrible father archetype. He wanted to eat his children and he was stern and lots of rules and regulations. But Black Moon Lilith is more the I want to reclaim my sovereignty. Do I want to be a mother? I don't know if I want that. I want to nurture myself. And through that nurturing of myself, that will then spill over to my offspring. Do I want to sacrifice myself for that role? And we also have that coming up now in media. I have a friend that wrote a book about it. I did a podcast episode with her on it, Women Without Kids. But now you have a lot of women kind of coming out of the non-mom closet and saying like, I don't want to do that. It's not for me. And what was once demonized, like if you said that in the 90s or 2000s, people were like, you're going to, dry up and you're evil and you're this and you're that because you don't want that role. So that's another facet of Lilith is it's the suppressed sides of the feminine. The feminine is multifaceted. Just because we have the parts to do something, that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to do that or it's truly for us. Motherhood's not for every person.
Right. Motherhood is also more complicated than it's portrayed in society. Like, women experience postpartum depression and they might not have healthy outlets to deal with that. Or, there's an expectation of mothers to be a certain way, to be happy, cheerful, whatever, but there's an honoring of the process of what it means to be a woman in all stages of life. What I mean by that, there's just like phases of life of growing into the divine feminine, and that there are many aspects of it, and that it's not all happy and bright. And I think that's what Lilith really highlights, is to really embrace like the darker sides of yourself. And I feel like when we try to repress or shun those darker parts of ourselves, it's like it comes up anyway. It can come up in traffic. It can come up when someone like accidentally like hits you as they're walking by you, and like all of a sudden you're like pissed off, and if you're not integrating these things on a regular basis, it will just like come up out of nowhere and it'll seem like you won't have any control over it, but it's because you just haven't been paying attention to it, and now it's just like screaming for your attention. And the other thing about like lineage, and a lot of this is like repressed stuff with our ancestors that we now have an opportunity to heal with our own bodies because we have the awareness. And you were mentioning like certain vibrations in your body that when you let go of certain things, you now have room for new vibrations to be in your body. And I think an old ancestral belief is that, for me anyway, is that you have to work really hard, really, really hard. And so that was something I really took with me for a long time. Like, I was a kid, I had like 3 jobs in college one year. I like was doing all this stuff always, like for as long as I can remember. I was that person. And now I'm like, I'm tired. You know what I mean? Like, it's time for me to embrace another part of what I think the biggest idea or wildest dream your ancestors had that they perhaps couldn't have with whatever circumstances were present in their lives. And the idea of hard work being intangible with some sort of outcome is just not true, is, something that I'm coming to, and I feel like this ancestral belief didn't even originate with me, but it was passed down from my grandmother. Said something like that. She was like, oh, working hard, you must be making a lot of money. And I was like, and so it goes down the lineage, down the lineage, down the lineage, and it's just repeated to you over and over and over again. And when she said that to me, I was like, I don't like necessarily believe that, because I don't feel like you need to work really hard to make lots of money. But I don't need to say that to her to reinforce it within myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's showing, I want to say it's showing maturity, because I'd have family members that I would like try to talk to this stuff about. And you realize like, okay, if I change it with myself, that's helping regardless. So I don't need to argue with people about their beliefs. You'll change them when you're ready. Or, you don't. And that's the reality that you're living in. But you're transforming it for your family line. What sign is your Black Moon Lilith in?
Scorpio.
I was about to say, I was like, I bet you she has Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio because she's going through the eclipses.
I definitely felt it. So let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. And also, would you mind giving us a collective reading from your deck?
Yes, I would love to.
Awesome. So what is your sun, moon, rising?
I use Placidus also for everyone out there. But I'm a Cancer rising, Scorpio sun, and a Leo moon.
Oh, do you resonate with that?
Yes, I do. I really do. Yes. I'm an occultist. I'm a creative, and I love makeup, hair, and beauty.
Amazing. What advice would you give to your younger self?
That keep going, and everything is going to transform, and it's going to change, and you're not going to be in this situation forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. And what are some of your favorite rituals?
Oh, so I live kind of close to the beach. I'm in Miami right now, and I do love to when the day is right, timing's right, moon's right. Not every full moon or new moon, but I do love to go and utilize the beach for my rituals and connecting to my element, connecting to the planet. And yeah, I've just always felt that water is such a powerful magic ritual, and utilizing big body of water and giving it offerings and speaking to it and speaking what you want to existence is really powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very reflective what is on the earth in terms of like percentage of water and like the percentage of water within one's body. So I feel like that's really symbolic, speaking intentions into the ocean, into this large body of water that is very connected to ancestors and travel and also depth. Very cool. I also love the ocean. And would you like to give us a reading?
Yes, my deck here. So let's see what's in store for the Graced podcast listeners. I'm using my Black Moon Lilith Rising deck here. So, for all of you listening, the first card I pulled out, I'm holding it up for everyone listening, is Putrefaction Shadow Release. And this actually has a lot to do with the lunar eclipse that we just experienced in Taurus on this past Saturday. So this is actually a 6-month portal that we're going to be experiencing. And it was quite literally the eclipse of creation and death, with Taurus being the creation and Scorpio being the death. And basically this card is calling for what must die, what old patterns, what is creating crisis, what no longer needs to be in our lives. And that is causing clutter and blocking abundance, what we desire, our fulfillment, our safety, our security. And that's Taurus. So this lunar eclipse illuminated that for a lot of you. And a lot of you are now, I don't want to say dark night of the soul, but some of you might quite literally be going through that. But this card is really calling for a time of shadow release and releasing just what is a burden and what is just no longer working. I'm going to pull. I usually like to do, I'll do 3 cards, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. Also, that ties in really well with Black Moon Lilith.
Well, so funny because I pulled the Lilith card, and this says the dark divine mother of creation, but some of you might quite literally be focusing on the area of life that you have Lilith in your chart, or some of the themes here around Lilith need to be released, allowing other people to take your power, not standing up to authority, not articulating yourself, not speaking for yourself. A lot of you you're going to get on the phase as like, enough's enough. This has gone on too long. And the thing with Scorpio and Taurus is with every death, it brings life. So with everything that's leaving, I think some of you may be quitting something or changing something as well. With everything that's leaving, it's creating space for something new. And so the last card we have here is dissolution, emotional clearing. And this goes on really well with the Putrefaction card. These are the Alchemy cards actually in the deck, and they speak to the stages that we go through in alchemical ascension. And this one specifically is emotional clearing through the element of water. So quite literally crying. Like I love how we just talked about the ocean and talked about water, but this has to do with shifting our internal emotions and allowing certain things to die. So I actually do also want to I'll read a little from the guidebook. I have it here. And I'm feeling the dissolution card. So that's card number 34. So after the ego has burned to ashes, you are left with raw, real, and challenging emotions around what has occurred. This is like the feeling you have after your heart has been shattered into a million pieces by needing to say goodbye to someone who isn't healthy in your life. Or the feeling of fear around money and taking care of yourself after you've left that cushy yet miserable job in favor of pursuing your passion. The universe is requiring you to sit with the angst and unpredictability when you pull this card in your reading. Processing, purging, and working with your emotions is extremely important during your alchemical journey. When the dissolution card shows up in an oracle reading, it's signaling a time for you to cleanse and wash away emotions that are preventing you from shining your light to the world. Your frequency and vibration consists of your thoughts and feelings emanating from your physical body and creating the world around you. When we release these limiting emotions like fear, self-doubt, and unworthiness, our magnetism and vibratory manifestation power increases. This is the second phase in alchemy involving the element water and also associated with Jupiter, the planet of spiritual growth. In this stage, there is an emotional cleansing of limitations, trauma, outdated patterns, and belief systems. This step cleanses away the ashes that were created from calcination, a prior step in alchemy. When this can feel uncomfortable, it is necessary for you to pull back the societal mask and reveal your true self. And that's also what Lilith is symbolizing as well, is a lot of you're really getting rid of some programming that has kind of kept on a mask and kept on a facade that has really just not enabled you to progress, whether it's your career, whether it's in love. It depends on what area of life it is for you. But over the next 6 months, you're stepping into your power. But there's going to be some uncomfortable changes.
Yeah. Well, with discomfort comes growth. So, y'all, you can make it, okay?
Yes, with discomfort comes growth. I mean, literally, like, I can't tell you, I don't want to say I'm a quitter, but I quit things with ease that when I feel disease, because disease brings disease. That's another facet of the dissolution card is a lot of us, we're taught in society to use our logic and to look outside of ourselves for the answers. When within, if you're in a situation and you feel a negative charge and an emotional charge around it, you are not supposed to be there. And a lot of people have trouble quitting that if it logically makes sense to stay there. Like I literally quit an almost 6-figure job to do this, where it's like, as an author, solopreneur, like you wake up in the morning, you're like, when's that next check coming? I don't know. And it's very unpredictable, but I'm at ease.
Well, sometimes it's also just about your soul calling. There's a purpose and reason for intuitives to be doing what they're doing, solopreneurs, whatever you identify as. I feel like there's a reason. And I totally agree with you that growing up, I felt very dissociated from my body and the signs that my body was giving me, because we're taught that with so many different things, whether it's like being consumed with media or being taught to look a certain way or to appear a certain way, to appease other people or whatever. And I think a lot of that just teaches you to silence the signs that you're feeling within your body to survive, because at that point in your life, you're not able to really be empowered in your own self yet, because you're still like a kid probably. But you're taught those same things when you're an adult. You repeat those same patterns and you stifle down your body's sensations that are like screaming at you like, this job is not for me or whatever, or like that relationship is not for me or whatever. And I agree with you. I think, a lot of people stay in situations for far longer than they probably should, just because they think they should be there. And the key word is should.
Well, what's interesting is emotions. And I talk about this in the book. It's linked with water, and water's feminine. So that the feminine being demonized isn't just like women under subjugation. It's all facets of the feminine. So our emotions have been, if you're being called emotional is a diss, like literally, and I'm a Cancer rising, so I've had people, you're so emotional, or like family members, like, you're emotional. I'm like, damn right, because they're the ones leading the way and they've never been wrong. But you guys demonize them because you're afraid of your femininity and getting to the core essence of yourself. And emotions are an incredibly powerful force that we've been taught they aren't our compass and they don't exist. We've been taught that they are not our frequency, like literally only logic because of science, and we do experiments and what makes sense, what's been proven, what's correct, what's smart to do. And it's like, well, you don't know what the universe has planned for you. So quitting that job that's making $150K, and even though you go home crying every night and you're miserable and you're grinding yourself into the ground, you quit that, just around the corner, there's a successful dog walking business because you're so passionate about dogs on the side and you didn't realize that you were. that's waiting around the corner for you, but you can't see that because you're not connected. You're not connected here.
Yeah. And I feel like so much of healing is also like releasing stifled emotions that just haven't been released for like a really long time. So that's where like time is not linear. Like the pain you might have felt at, I don't know, age 8 or whatever from whatever trauma you experienced. And like you're suddenly ready in your 30s to release it because you feel safe enough to do so. Yeah, I feel like emotions are so powerful because they're often the fuel that drives you to make a decision. Because if you feel like angry about something in the moment, you're probably going to do something rash that you didn't expect to do because you were feeling angry. Or if you were sad, that might motivate you to do something or nothing, right? Or if you're happy, maybe that would allow you to make an aligned decision in that moment because you were feeling lighter in your body. And so paying attention to emotions is truly vital because, as you said, if you don't pay attention to it, it can lead to dis-ease, which can lead to disease.
I don't want to say the battle is ever over, but I'm sure everyone in the modern world has anxiety, depression, but like literally, that's something that I battled was anxiety and dealing with trapped emotions and being in realities that I was forcing myself to like fit, and that created emotional disease within me. And then it's outward. And I'm not saying like, oh, you're gonna get a physical disease because you're stressed. But I mean, now at this point, there's actually science that backs up that our feelings are connected to our health. So it's so important for your health, mental and physical, to be in realities that are truly aligned with you. And sometimes because as children, we have caretakers that are also indoctrinated into the system that don't know any better and are teaching us what they know. And we're in our school system being taught certain things and ways of being. It's more challenging to get outside of that. And not everyone has that challenge. Some people come right out the gate and get right into their life path and have no problems with it. But a lot of us struggle with that because we've just been told that that's us. And people don't know who we are. The universe knows who we are. And we have to get to know ourselves. And astrology is a huge tool for shadow work, actually. That's something that I do want to end with. And that's really how I treat Black Moon Lilith, is that the chart doesn't lie. Like, like you sit here and you look, you're like, okay, I got Black Moon Lilith and Pluto in the 6th. And my chart is definitely telling me some tea that I've got to face. It's here in black and white. And so do I want to face it or sweep it under the rug and have it, like you said, kind of rear its ugly head at another time and harm me and not be positive for my life?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting how like emotions, if unexpressed, can manifest as certain situations, like let's say a magnetizing jealous people or whatever, or the boss that you don't get along with, or and that could create an emotion that then allows you to face these Black Moon Lilith themes that you are meant to face to get over so that you are not, I think, swallowed by it. Instead, you can like face it and be empowered by it so that you become a stronger sense of who you are. Yeah, and I also feel like with emotions, sometimes they do manifest as physical symptoms. Like if you're feeling anxiety, you could have a migraine because of that anxiety. And if it's like untreated for a long time, it could manifest into something else. And so, yeah, point is emotions are important. Pay attention to it, pay attention to your body. And astrology, I think it's like amazing how, looking at transits, like the eclipses and like what's natally going on in your birth chart can just tell you so much about yourself, but also using like your oracle cards or any card deck can also give you insight into, what's going on in your present day life and give you insight in that way. And I feel like just spiritual modalities in general that might seem a little woo woo, but you feel drawn to it for whatever reason, that's also listening to your intuition in your body. Like if it feels right to like pick up a card deck because you feel really drawn to it, like why not? Sometimes I get questions about like, oh, is the tarot, related to the devil? And I'm like, listen to yourself, and it's not their fault or anything. Like, I think a lot of the people that ask me come from very religious backgrounds and they're taught, that tarot is evil, but they're somehow drawn to it. I'm just like, well, why don't you experiment and see how you feel with the cards? And I think that's enough. Like, I'm not going to tell you because it's your relationship with the cards, right? And you have to figure that out on your own. But if you feel good, if you feel empowered by using the cards, I think that says a lot more than, what you're taught to believe about them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's also going along with the patriarchal indoctrination where these practices are demonized because they're feminine aspects. Self intuition, internal investigation, internal wisdom, transformation, these are all aspects of the feminine. And I'm not hating on people's beliefs, but this is a part of Lilith, is understanding the role that religious patriarchy has played in the world. It's a huge part of this archetype. And so through telling people that things are demons or demonized, it's control. That's look within yourself. How is that demonic? Look at yourself.
Or it's like you pull the death card and it's like, am I going to die? And it's like, you have to like explain the whole, like, it's all about your rebirth.
I'm a Scorpio, so I know, and I was born on November 13th on top of it on Friday. So it's okay, everyone. You'll be fine. Or the death card represents Scorpio for anyone that's wondering that reference.
Yeah, and 13.
Yeah, I was born on Friday, November 13th. It's wild.
Yeah, it all makes sense now. Amazing. Adama, it was such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You're not afraid to go there and to talk about, I think, some of these darker topics that might be uncomfortable for people, but are absolutely necessary for someone to truly get to know themselves, because you can't really just integrate the light. If you want to welcome in more light, you also have to understand the dark. And we come from both. We integrate both dualities within ourselves as humans. And I feel like when we understand ourselves to that extent, we can also understand others and offer them that compassion and acceptance when we have also given ourselves compassion and acceptance for the duality within us. So thank you so much for, speaking about Lilith and the power of Lilith, and also like how we can use Lilith in our own lives.
Thanks so much for having me on, Grace.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode with Adama. I'm so glad we got a chance to dive deep with Adama about the power of Black Moon Lilith, understanding this placement within our natal and transit charts, and also what it means to own the parts of us that have been hidden in the shadows. How do you relate to your Black Moon Lilith? I want to know. Leave a comment on YouTube, Instagram, and all the socials so I can hear more about your Black Moon Lilith experience. And as a reminder, we are doing a giveaway of Adama's Oracle deck, Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Alchemy, over on Instagram, YouTube, and all the socials. Until next time, my dear soul family, own your power and step into your light so that you give yourself and others the permission to be their full authentic selves too. Sending you grace today and every day. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember to subscribe and check out more Grace podcast episodes for how to apply everyday magic to your everyday life. See you next time.